Hey everyone, Squatch'ya doing? Angie here. Hey, I want to tell you guys about a cool encounter that I had. And this time it wasn't just me, my husband was with me. Yeah, my husband. I don't think he'll come on and talk about it because he's really not in the Bigfoot world. That's more my thing. He was just with me at the time, but he definitely saw it. He can 100% verify my story. If he ever decides to make a video about it, I'll post it on the channel as well. But let me tell you about what happened. So about 2 weeks ago, I and my husband were over in Washington and Oregon. We did a long RV trip, and we had gotten to the Gifford-Pinot Forest. I hope I pronounced that right. And we were in a little town called Cougar, and we were staying at the most adorable RV park. And I wanted to go to that neck of the woods specifically for Bigfoot, because you know that area is just synonymous with Sasquatch. People have sightings there all the time, encounters, not necessarily in Cougar, but in that forest in general. So we had a day to kill, and so I'm like, let's just go one night and stay over here in Cougar, and let's just see, you know, if we see anything. If not, it's just a beautiful place to camp for the night, no big deal. So like I said, Lone Fir, so L-O-N-E-F-I-R, Lone Fir is an RV park in Cougar. Highly recommend it. I am going to make a video because the place was just so cute. I absolutely adored it. I would like to go back there and stay for at least a month and a half at that park and do some squatching. Anyways, so we get there, we get settled in, we eat dinner, we get the RV set up, and we're just kind of chilling. So nightfall comes, and we decide to break out the monocle, and we're just going to walk through the park. We had been driving a whole bunch because we were on a cross-country RV trip. Like I said, I'm here in Arkansas, and this was over in Washington. So we were kind of tired of driving. We just wanted to hang out at the RV park. And so we just grabbed the monocle, my thermal, and we were walking around the park, shining it in trees, looking around. Now, before I tell you what I'm about to tell you, the park is fantastic, but I'll save a lot of that detail for my other video. But one thing I will say is it was 4th of July. It was 4th of July. It was Friday, 4th of July, 2025. And they had a bunch of red, white, and blue night lights that were hung up all around the park. And they were like just flashing and dancing, and they were set on some sort of show. And it was really cool. And I had just told my husband, I said, man, if there's any Sasquatch around here, they are going to love this. You know, we all feel that Sasquatch like to come in close to watch us, to observe us. And something like that would really grab their attention. It was a red, white, and blue light show, in essence. And so I had just told him, man, if there's any around here, they're going to draw close to watch this because this is really cool. And he was just like, yeah, whatever. You know, there's my crazy wife again, talking Sasquatch stuff. But I'm like, no, I'm serious. I said, they like to watch people. They people watch. And I said, this is going to get their attention if they're around here. And he just blew me off. I'm like, all right. So we're walking through the park, and we're looking around through the monocle, looking through the thermal, and not seeing everything. You know, we're just seeing the normal heat signatures of, you know, the trees starting to lose their temperature from the daytime sun. So all that was very normal. And so I swing around with my thermal and nothing. And so I'm like, well, let's just look up. And when I looked up, I was like, no. And I said, my husband's name is John. I said, John, look at this. I said, I think I'm seeing something that I want to see, but no, I surely am not seeing this. And he looks at it, and he like leans in. Now, I don't want to tell too much of his story, but he's like, basically, holy crap, what is that? It was a huge image on the thermal. where there was no other color. Everything else around it was already dark. And this thing was shining as bright as can be with its heat signature. And as I'm watching it and I'm studying it, you could see the head, you could see wide shoulders, and the coolest thing, you could see its leg dangling off the tree and a big foot attached to the leg. It was just dangling off the tree. It was up there sitting in a tree watching that light show. Like I said, if something was around, would watch, because I just knew that that would get their attention. And sure enough, there was one up there sitting. We guesstimated it was about 50 feet up. Now, if you're familiar with the trees out there, they really don't have trees at the base. They're usually kind of like very, very, very high up. So well, I'll get to that in a second. So I'm sitting here watching this thing sitting in the tree, and it looked like it had its arm around the tree, because you could see its arm and you could see its shoulder. And like I said, you could see the shoulders, you could see the outline of the head, and then you could see the calf that was hanging off the branch that was just dangling in the air, and you could see the big foot. And the foot had a lot of heat. It was showing up red, because at this point I had on the red hot setting. And so it was basically the background was black, and the image itself was kind of white, but then in the hot sections, it was red. And I just kept going, clicking through the different settings on my thermal, looking at it in different images. You know, the traditional thermal image that we all know of, it showed up perfectly clear in that. In the green mode, whatever that one's called, it was there. Red hot, I mean, everything. In all the settings, you could see it as clear as day. And my husband and I just kept passing it back and forth. And it was very still. It wasn't moving. You know, even though it had its leg dangling, you know, like a human, we would just like be swinging our leg. It was just laying there, well, just dangling there. It wasn't, you know, kicking or any of that. It just was just hanging there. But you could see it plain as day. And so we would just be passing the monocle back and forth. And every so often, you wouldn't see it change position, but when you would get the monocle and look at it again, it would be like in a different position. And so my husband's like, you got to take pictures of this. And I'm like, well, I don't know how. I've never really used my thermal much. I didn't know how to do it. And so I said, you stay on it. You keep watching it. I'm going to run back to the RV and get the owner's manual, and I'm going to figure out how to take the picture. So I go, I look, I figure out how it is. I go back. I'm like, all right, we're good. So I start pushing the camera button. Now that I know what button it was, and the SD card was in there. And I'm taking pictures of far away, zoomed in. I was doing it in all the different color settings. That way everybody could see it in all the colors. Like I said, at the original distance, and then zoomed in, because we were watching it really through the zoom. But I would take it back to the natural distance, so that way you could still see it from the real distance. I took so many pictures. And then towards the end, my husband passed the monocle back to me, and I'm watching it. Now, mind you, this is going on for a good hour. We're just standing out there just watching this thing. And nobody else was around. Everybody else was in their camp, in their RVs, in their cabins. We were the only ones out there. And we're watching it. And I said, it changed. It looks different now. I said, it looks like there's two. And so I passed it back over to my husband. I said, look, I said, it looks different now. And so he looked at it. He goes, I think there is two. I think in the very beginning, one was sitting on one's lap. And then towards the end, it had moved, and now you could see both of them. So, and they weren't both the same size. One was bigger than the other. So I'm thinking it was either a juvenile and like a brother or sister, like a younger brother or sister, or it could have been like a young mom with its baby, or toddler, because it wasn't a baby. It was more like a toddler size. We could not believe it. That was the first time my husband has ever seen one. And I was jumping up and down. I'm like, he finally saw a Sasquatch. And he could not believe it. He goes, I can't explain that. He goes, 100% not a person like us. There's no way a human being could climb that tree as high as what that was that we were watching, unless they had, like professional tree climber gear, and they could, with the spikes and whatever they used to wrap around the tree. But then who's going to do that in the middle of the night for no reason? I mean, seriously, it was pitch black out except for, the few lights they had around the RV park, and then those red, white, and blue light show that was going on off the strip lights that they had. It wasn't a human. It was not somebody like us. It was a Sasquatch. There's no other explanation. Let's just play devil's advocate. If it was a mountain lion, because they have mountain lion out there, it's possible that a limb could be dangling off the branch that I could see. I get that, but they don't have a big foot. I could clearly see the foot attached to the leg. Mountain lion, out. A bear, same thing. The foot was not as big as a Bigfoot's foot. It just wasn't. And the body shape was wrong. Unless that bear was up there sitting on its booty on the tree with its arm wrapped around and another leg was hanging. It wasn't a bear. It just physically was not a bear. No, it wasn't a human in our sense. There's only one explanation. And the next day, I went out there and took pictures in the daylight from where I suspected that we were standing. And I tried to get pictures at the distance that we were. And then I tried zooming in. It got blurry. It's kind of hard to make out the trees. But I could see when I walked closer, and I should have got a picture of this one, but I didn't, because I thought I had already captured the picture. But looking back at it, I didn't capture the picture very well. But with my own eyes, I walked forward because there was a fence that separated the RV park property to the next door property, which looked like a vacant lot. And I could see the tree that it was in. And in that tree, there was like a bend in the tree. Instead of being straight up and down, it was straight, but then it went like this and then went up. And where we saw it, it was in that little area. So it was wrapped around and it was sitting on that little curve of the tree, and it was watching, I believe, the light show. Coolest thing ever. It was just mesmerizing. I will never forget seeing that leg dangling off that branch and that foot. The foot was huge. And like I said, you could see the shoulders, you could see the outline of the head, and just the mass of the back, because its back was to us. And I think sometimes it would turn its head to watch the lights. And I think I said at one point that when they separated, when you could see the two, I think the other one might have been facing. But at that distance and not through thermal, it's kind of hard to tell. But that's what it looked like was happening. Couldn't believe it. So the next day, we end up going to a Beachfoot. Thank you, Todd Neese, for inviting us. And went to that, had a great time. And I was just chomping at the bit to get home, to get my SD reader, because I forgot my SD card reader. So I couldn't take the Monocular one out and put it in there to show everybody at Beachfoot, because what we just saw literally the day before. So we get home, and one of the first things I do the next day, I get my SD card reader, I stick that SD card in there. Not one picture. Not one. Not one. Not one. How in the world can not even one? The file was there. There's just like a generic file. And when I double clicked on the file, nothing there. I took probably 30 pictures and not one. We have zero proof of the most fantastical Sasquatch sitting up in the tree that I've ever seen. For myself. Now, maybe others have seen it, but for me, it was thrilling. Like I said, my husband, first time ever seeing one. And even though it was through a thermal image, he got to see it. And he knows it's undeniable. he's like, there's just no other option. I said, I know. Welcome to the club, and welcome to the club of having no evidence that your equipment didn't capture it. Welcome to the club. If you want me to, I can, at the end of this video, post the pictures. There's nothing to see, of the tree. It's really nothing to see, but I'll put it up there. But I'm just telling you right now, it's not impressive. There's nothing to see there. I'll put an arrow at the general area of where it was sitting, but in the picture, you can't even see it. I did do a zoomed in picture from where we were standing, and like I said, it's very blurry. You can't see it. The only way that I saw where that little nook was, where that little bend in the tree where it was sitting, I only saw that because I walked up to the, like I said, the perimeter fence, and I was looking and I could see it then. But in my pictures, you can't see it. So it's not really worthwhile to post it because you can't see anything. But if you'd like me to, I will. And just as a side note, I saw her walking around my house after the pictures of the Sasquatch in the tree didn't take on the SD card. I saw her walking around my house and I was practicing with it. None of those took either. So I'm thinking my monocle is faulty. I think that the camera ability is not working. So it's not user error, it's equipment error. So hopefully we'll get that fixed. And so hopefully in the future, if we see any more thermal images while we're out investigating, it'll capture it. But I am so disgusted that it did not capture that. It was awesome. It was awesome. And I'm stunned, and I love it, and I just wish I had proof to show you. Oh, the life of a Bigfooter. That's what happens all the time. It's what happens all the time. And people just don't understand it till they get out into the field and they do it themselves. But anyways, we saw a Sasquatch, if not two, we believe it was two, in Cougar, Washington. Yay. So if anybody's out there, go to the Lone Fir RV Resort campgrounds. They have cabins. They have, I think, tent sites, and they have RV sites. So it's just perfect. It's a little slice of heaven. But like I said, I'll make another video on that. So y'all, thanks so much for listening to my story. My foot is now healed. I can get back into the actual woods and hiking. And so I'll hopefully be getting some more videos coming up soon. So thanks so much. Please like and share. I really want to grow this channel, but I can't do it on my own. I need you guys to share and tell your friends about it and help me get my views and my subscribers up. And I'm thinking about doing a giveaway too. So be looking for that. But anyways, thanks so much for listening to my Sasquatch and a tree story. Have a super duper day. Squatch'ya doing. Bye.